Я подключаюсь, передаю настройку. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, guys, it's here. Episode 3 of the Talking Lead AK Korner, presented by Pioneer Arms Corp. And as always, we've got our other host. I'm not going to call him a ho-host because he is the other host of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Ansel Robinson, a.k.a. Shwell.
How's it going, everyone? It is great to be back.
Welcome back. It's been a while.
Is this a week later?
It's a week later. It's a month. It feels like 2 months later, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So as we talked about in the last episode, Shwell, you guys were preparing an awesome trip for not only me, but some fellow media personnel types. And our special guest expert tonight is none other than Mr. David Fortier. David, welcome in.
Hey, and I'm not an expert. I'm just a continual student.
Well, you're an expert tonight, so. But yes, we are always students. You're always wanting to learn. And that's why we brought you, because you're going to teach our lead heads, among other things. But our topic tonight is ballistics. We're going to talk.
Dun, dun, dun.
AK-47 ballistics and AK variants, the AK-74. And then we'll also get into comparing some other rounds along with that. So we brought David along for this. David literally wrote the book on AK-47s, and he writes it every year. They have an annual book that they put out. It's called The Book of the AK-47. David, talk about that. Yeah, there it is. I like it.
This is a publication that's put out by Outdoor Sportsman's Group, who I work for, and this is an annual that we started many years ago. It's been extremely popular, and I was lucky enough to be made the editor a couple years ago. I was working on it when we first started it, and I'm now the editor, where we are now. And it's just it's a great title. It's a great subject matter. We focus primarily on the AK-47, but we do basically everything comm block. And we delve a little bit more into it than just your traditional weapon type articles. Sure, we have suppressors. We'll cover night vision. We'll cover cleaning gear. But we also expand out. Like we've got a neat article on the tactics that were used during World War II and prior to World War II that kind of ushered in the need for this type of a weapon. Right. But we'll even go into stuff like Soviet cinema and book reviews.
Yeah, so you guys get into some great detail on that. So you lead heads and you AK heads, make sure you go. And where can they find this magazine, David?
Oh, this can be found any place where fine publications are sold. Walmart, probably your grocery store, normal bookstores.
Your Books A Million.
Any place that has a good selection of magazines.
There you go. Very good. And you said you've been doing this for several years now, right?
I can't remember actually what year was the first year that we did Book of the AK-47. I'm going to guess probably around 2007.
Okay. So a good while now, almost 10 years, a little over 10 years.
Yeah.
If someone like me wanted to go get some of those back issues, is it possible to go get the back issues on that? How would you find those?
Well, the early issues are actually collector's items now. So I'm serious. You can find them on eBay occasionally, and they crop up here and there, but we do not have those available. Those sold out a long time ago.
So you didn't stack up 5 or 10 or 15 just for your own personal collection there?
I stacked up a few of different issues. I wish I actually had more than I did, especially the early ones that became,
that would be a
big time collector.
Yeah, that would be a great resource. So now's the time to starting your collection with those lead heads. So,
yep.
So again, one more time, the name of the publication that's putting that out?
This is Book of the AK-47, and it is a SIP from our Firearms News Magazine. Mm-hmm. Firearms News was originally founded in 1946 as Shotgun News, and most people know it as that. So this is just one of the titles that we put out underneath that.
Very cool. So what we want to do now is we want to field some of our leadhead questions, and we're going to go to our mailbox now, Shwell. And let's start off with this one. And David, there's going to be some questions in here that you may want to field as we're reading these. So
I will do my best.
This one comes from Kurt G. And Kurt says, Marty, good evening. Just listened to episode 2 and loved it. Vince did an awesome job explaining things and would be a great regular guest to have on. So we had Vince Buckles on last episode, David. Vince is with Mesa Kinetic Research, and he does a lot of custom builds. He and Larry Vickers.
Oh, right. He offers the class with Larry.
Yeah, with Larry.
The builder's class.
Yeah,
right.
So Vince and Larry do some awesome custom build AKs. They also offer classes for you guys to be able to learn how to use those AKs after you build them. So that was our guest, episode 2. Make sure you go back, AK Korner episode 2. Check that out. We talked about all the parts of the AK-47. Kurt goes on to say, bummer not to win the rifle. Well, I mean, there's still opportunities, right, Shwell?
Absolutely. At least once a month.
At least once a month, yeah. This is our 3rd episode. We're doing 12 of these. We're giving at least one away from here on out on every episode. He said, but still exciting to have the shout-out on the air and know our participation is appreciated. Yet another reason this is the best industry in the world, and you do a stand-up job representing it. Well, thank you. So I'll be looking forward to episode 3 and everything in between now and then, and we'll keep pushing the show to those around me. I wish you safe travels to Poland. Well, we did. We had a great trip to Poland. If you'll go back a couple of episodes, David was actually on that episode with us, and we talked a little bit about our trip. It was a little rushed, but that's something that I want to get you guys back on, David, all the gang. And
absolutely,
we're going to talk.
It was a whirlwind trip, wasn't it?
Oh my gosh, it was amazing.
It was just hard to soak everything in.
I couldn't believe the activities that they had for us every single day, and about every hour of every day. I mean, we were jam slammed. We were doing, if we weren't doing a tour of a factory, we were doing a tour of the city or a museum or a restaurant,
shooting machine guns, driving BMPs. Seeing how T-72 diesel engines are rebuilt, interviewing Polish Second Amendment, right people. There was just so much going on. But at the same time, we were in a beautiful part of the world. The people were extremely pro-American, very friendly. And the food wasn't bad either now, was it?
The food was awesome. We ate like kings. It was unbelievable. We asked him if they eat like that all the time, and he was like, yeah, this is kind of how they eat.
You keep rubbing it in, and I won't be back for another episode.
And they like their potato juice there too, don't they, David?
Yeah.
Little vodka. So yeah, we're gonna get David and the gang back on, and we'll talk more details about all that because it was amazing. So next email comes from.
We can break it down.
Yeah, absolutely. A little more detailed on that. Jonathan Gallup. Giddy up is what we call him. It says, Lefty, first off, Poland, sweet, congrats. That actually sparked a question for me. What makes the Radom, or the Rodom, it's pronounced Rodom, what makes the Rodom Polish AKs or Bulgarian AKs such good quality over a Wasser or Romanian? I have my suspicions, but I'd love an expert's opinion or explanation. I mean, they were and are all working from the same original blueprints. Also, why did the Czechs decide to just develop the VZ58 at CZ instead of using the AK design? Did the Russians not really care that the VZ58 was out there as long as it took the 7.62x39 cartridge? Amazing segment. Keep them coming. Safe travels. Make sure you have some authentic. He's calling it Grodzisky. Did we have Grodzisky beer? I don't know. We didn't drink a lot of beer. We drank some vodka, though. I know that.
Yeah.
So his first question, what makes the Radom Polish AKs or Bulgarian AKs such good quality over a Wasser or Romanian? You got an opinion on that?
Quality control. It just comes down to the quality control of the factory, the workers on the line, the work ethics, the amount of firearms manufacturing heritage that these companies had and the effort that they put into it. So, as you know, the Cold War era Polish guns tended to be very nice, and it was because they had a lot of things in place to ensure that they had, nice, consistent quality across the board, and they put a little bit more effort into it. But you also have to remember that, Americans are also used to seeing, for a long time, Romanian commercial guns came in. And a lot of those commercial guns, frankly, were made to meet a certain price point of the American importer. So they were on the rougher side due to simply trying to meet the demands of an American importer.
Yeah. And like you said, it's the quality control. And we saw firsthand a quality control system in place when we went to the Pioneer Arms manufacturing facility. It was amazing the different amount of hands, physical hands, physical eyes that touch each part and inspect it and make sure that it's of the finest quality.
Well, that's the key to anything, is that you have to have good quality control in place. You have to have good procedures in place. Okay. You have to have machine operators that verify their machines are in spec at the beginning of a shift, that verify their machines are in spec going through the shift and at the end of the shift. And you have to have people that will, if they're not able to get their machines running properly, to get it set back up properly by someone that can do that, you've got to have, all these little different things that are just part of normal manufacturing with any company that wants to make a nice quality product.
Right, and it helps that your employees really believe in your product as well, just like
absolutely,
Pioneer Arms
employees does. The most important. The guy that's on the assembly line or is running the machine. I mean, these are the most important people there are. Yeah,
and it was amazing. He was telling us the longevity of their employees there is like pretty much once they hire somebody, they stay there for life.
Well, I had a question about that. Now, when I was growing up, Detroit was known for, producing cars.
Yeah.
Is it like that over there? Is that how they're perceived at that plant?
Actually, that's a great question, Shwell, that I asked myself. And there's actually two things to that question, because on the one hand, you have, obviously someone that's been doing a job for a long time, tends to be really good at it. On the flip side of this, though, you're talking about former communist countries, and the old workers that spent time under communism, they were used to working at a different rate compared to what a Western worker would be like. So there's good things about a worker with a long time in his job, but at the same time, the newer, younger workers tend to have a different attitude than anyone that worked underneath the communist times.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, gotcha. I never even thought about that.
Yeah, he made that point too. He's like, some of the newer ones that are coming on, they'll be there for a little bit, and then kind of like here in America, they'll get trained up and learn some skills, and then they'll try to get better themselves and do it quickly.
Yeah.
But the guys that were there forever, like the guy who was making the parts that made the parts that make their parts.
Yeah, exactly.
That guy was like really guarded, and he didn't really want to share his trade secrets with anybody. It was kind of like job security kind of thing for him. So he was being really secretive on how he did what he did. But great company though there, and the employees there were first rate. So he goes on. Second part of Giddy Up's question was regarding the VZ58 and the CZ. So he said, why did the Czechs decide just to develop the VZ58 at CZ instead of using the AK design? Can you speak to that? Did the Russians not really care that the VZ58 was out there as long as it?
Because they because they were Czechs, and who are the Russians to come and tell the Czechs how to build a gun? That's the Czech attitude, okay? These are people with a long history, an illustrious history of making high-quality firearms, designing high-quality firearms, automatic weapons. And so, you know, it would have been a big pill for them to swallow to just have, you know, these Russians come and say, here, you know. And frankly, the Czechs thought that they could build something better. There's national pride into using your own domestic design. And the VZ is by no means a perfect rifle, but it had a lot of nice features to it, one of which is that it was extremely light and handy.
Yeah. Good answer. All right, so our next question comes from CRS Hokey, which is leadhead number 1, Chuck. It says, look like you're having a blast overseas. Stay safe, brother. So we posted a lot of pictures while we were over there. You guys go to Instagram, Facebook, check out a lot of the videos and pictures that we posted. You guys are under, for your Instagram and social media, what's your tag, David?
Firearms News.
Yeah, Firearms News. It's at Firearms News on Instagram. So his question says, I have deals with pistol caliber AKs. Seeing how much pistol caliber carbines and ARs have blown up over the past few years, will we see more options in the AK platform? Are there conversion kits available to modify an OTS AK to pistol caliber, or is that even possible given the parts designs? Love the series. Hope it continues on other platforms next year. He's got some suggestions. All right. So what do you think about the pistol caliber?
Pistol caliber carbines run in cycles. Okay, so and this is really interesting. It's something that I've tracked for a little bit because you'll go through a period of time. Pistol caliber carbines are hot, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone wants one. And then everyone will get one, and then slowly they'll go out of popularity, and they're unpopular for a little while, and then all at once they come back. And it's just how the industry runs. Currently, everyone's rediscovered just how much fun they are. They're less expensive to shoot. You can shoot steel with them up close. You can swap ammunition with your carry gun. They're less expensive to reload for. And they do basically what a lot of people need to be done, because a lot of people out there live in a 100-meter world, and they don't necessarily need everything that a conventional rifle caliber gun will give them. Now, on the other hand, as far as what's going to happen with pistol caliber AKs, that my crystal ball is dead on. I would love to see a bunch of stuff come in or be available that be offered. What we're going to see and when we'll actually see it, I don't know, but I think it would be a great thing. And I've shot like the pistol caliber Bison and the different Russian subguns, and they're a lot of fun.
Now, I know that Kalashnikov USA had on display the last couple of years a 9mm AK.
Yeah, they had their copy of basically the Viking, the Vintorez, and where is it?
Right, we've yet to see it in mass production. So when we were over there talking with Mike and Pioneer Arms, they're working on a 22, an actual AK-47 in 22, using all the same parts.
Well, I think that point that you just made, that they're using regular parts, is what the kicker on that is. Typically the 22 AKs that typically have shown up in the U.S. market kind of look like an AK, but they're not an AK, and they're kind of homely and stuff. The concept that they shared for us would be that, this would be an actual AK rifle, but in 22 rimfire. And I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's
and they made the point. They made the point too, as far as that, where they also hope to be able to get some military export sale on that as far as a trainer. So if they're planning on offering it as a military trainer, then they're going to have to do their work on it, and that could be pretty interesting.
Yeah, so it's going to be great to see that when they get that available. So one more before we get into our main topic here. This is from Jason Farmer, and this was a two-part. So when you guys send me emails, when you send me Jackwagon nominations, send that in a separate email. Don't lump them with the AK Korner, please. Keep those separate. So Jason had a Jackwagon, and I'll probably read that next episode. But for the AK Korner, his question is, he says, I enjoy the AK Korner and know you probably already have plans of discussing these topics, but would love to hear them covered at some point. Historical accessories that have been used with the AK platform, night scopes, grenade launchers, mounting options, the modern, David likes that topic, the modern aftermarket mounting options for optics, and which ones will hold zero effectively, the modernized, militarized variations of the AK rifle currently in use by Russia and other modern armies in use today. So, yes, those would be great topics.
Those are all great topics. I look forward to listening to those shows myself.
Okay. Well, we may have you on for that. So, your wish may come true. But this episode, episode 3 of the AK Korner, presented by Pioneer Arms Corp, we're going to be talking ballistics, and we're going to defer to our expert here as he's floating a bullet across the screen there. Where would you think we should start talking about ballistics on the AK-47? Where would be a good starting point for this?
I can bring in a question.
At the beginning.
In the beginning.
Yes, well, throw it out there.
Well, here's my question.
Yep.
In the industry, when you're talking to gun folks, the AK-47 is very reliable, but the round, the 7.62x39, doesn't have any real distance to it. It doesn't perform well once it leaves the barrel. Can you go into that just a little bit and explain to those of us that don't understand why it is that people think that? Are they right or are they wrong?
Good question, Shwell.
It's a great question, Shwell, and it's something I think that there's a little bit of confusion on in some areas, and it also goes back. I won't go back there right this second, but it goes back to where the cartridge came from and why it came into being. But let's do it the simple way. Is the 7.62x39 a cartridge that performs well at long range? No. Is the 7.62x39 an inherently accurate cartridge? Not really. Is the 7.62x39 cartridge suitable for its intended role? Absolutely. Does the 7.62x39 have sufficient accuracy for its intended usage? Sure.
Absolutely. So let's talk about that. The intended usage of the 7.62x39 round.
Okay. Well, if we go back to the very beginning, you got to go back. We'll go back to the Great Patriotic War, World War II, okay, and we'll ignore Fedorov right at the moment. But basically, during the Great Patriotic War, World War II, you had mass armies fighting on the Eastern Front in a type of combat that was never experienced on the Western Front. And the Soviets were basically armed with SVT-40 and Mosin Nagant 7.62x54R rifles, and PPSH-41 and some PPS-43 submachine guns in 7.62x25. Okay, so the 54R cartridge had reach, it had penetration. The submachine gun was effective up close, for house-to-house fighting, for bunker clearing. The problem was that they didn't have anything in between. Realistically, the 54R had a lot more reach than the average infantryman could ever actually make use of in normal infantry engagement distances. Now, on the opposite side of the front, the Germans recognized this. They'd done extensive tests or studies during World War I, and basically they came to the conclusion that your average infantryman with a rack-grade rifle, off-the-shelf military ball ammunition, couldn't reliably hit a man-sized target past 400 meters, okay? because one, the target's probably moving. Two, he's probably camouflaged. Three, he probably doesn't want to get shot. And four, he's probably shooting back. Okay,
Right.
So there's a lot of difference between shooting things on a known distance range on nicely painted targets and actual combat. Okay, and that's another thing that people have to understand too in some of the discussion. But so. To do it quickly, the Germans developed their 7.92 by 33 Kurtz cartridge, which went into the MP 43, 44, and Sturmgewehr series. And basically, this combined the best features of the submachine gun and the battle rifle. The Soviets liked that concept, and they basically adopted the concept, developed the 7.62 by 41 cartridge, which became the 7.62 by 39. They fielded it in the SKS-45 and then the Kalashnikov series. And it was designed with World War II thinking, massed armies, armored vehicles, troops fighting from armored vehicles, around armored vehicles, riding into combat, and a lot of house-to-house fighting in trenches, fighting in bunkers. And the cartridge weapon system is at its best inside 200 meters. It can definitely reach out to 400 meters. It's not a... due to the design of the cartridge, okay, you have a relatively fat but short projectile. So the ballistic coefficient of these projectiles is relatively poor. Even with the original M43 load that the Soviets introduced, it was a full metal jacket boat tail. The ballistic coefficient is low. The muzzle velocity is relatively low, around 2,330 feet per second. So once you start to get out past 250 yards, you have to start to take into account bullet drop, wind deflection, and lead on targets. So these all kind of come together to make it difficult for your average conscript that doesn't have a lot of training, who needs to be able to range his target accurately and then, apply lead, wind, and then press the trigger. So the good things about the 7.62 by 39 is it penetrates intermediate barriers well. It throws a large, fairly heavy projectile, and it is sufficiently accurate. So, it has some nice features to it. The original loads that the United States encountered in Vietnam being used against them, the original ball loads, they gave the cartridge a really bad reputation as far as terminal performance was concerned. The steel cord projectiles tended to penetrate a long ways before they yawed. So a lot of times a person could be hit in a leg or an arm or in the upper torso, and there'd only be a clean 30 caliber hole through them if the round didn't tumble. Okay. Now, that's completely different compared to what the cartridge is capable of doing with modern expanding projectiles. So with modern expanding projectiles, terminal performance is very good for this size family of a cartridge. Projectiles tend to penetrate about 16 inches in 10% ordnance gelatin. They expand, depending upon the projectile design, okay, but something like a Hornady SST or even the Wolf soft points, they'll have a very short neck, maybe half an inch to an inch, and they expand very reliably. How's that?
That's great. That's awesome. So basically, the AK performs the way the AK was designed for. It wasn't designed to be a long-range, precise, accurate rifle. So it's doing exactly what it was designed to do.
It's doing exactly what it's designed to do. Now, that doesn't say that there aren't some examples on in people's hands that shoot well, okay, and that in the skilled hands can't be taken a lot farther, okay. One of my friends was competing at the Finnish Lapua sniper match many years ago. This was a 2-team competition. The sniper's his bolt-action rifle went down during a stage. His partner had one of the Finnish, I believe it was an RK-95 TP in 7.62x39 with an optic on it, and he actually finished out the stage for his partner, and he was making hits out to 650 meters with it.
Wow!
But again, this was on
in the hands of an expert, yeah.
And it was also on a range under range conditions. So
right
now recreationally, I'll shoot an AK just as far as I can try to score hits on it.
Very good. And then that gets us into, the AK-47 7.62x39. That's what it was designed for. And then, they switched over several years later to the AK-74, which is there it is, the 5.45x39 round. So what's the difference in the 7.62x39 and the 5.45x39?
Okay, 2 completely different concepts here. And what's really interesting is, and I'm going to take you off in a little rabbit hole here for a second, because that's really what I personally enjoy doing.
Let's do it.
Okay. The father of Russian and Soviet automatic weapons was a guy named Fedorov. Okay. Mm-hmm. And prior to World War I, he had conceptualized the idea of having a family of automatic weapons. And he wanted to do it in a 6.5 millimeter caliber to flatten the trajectory, make the point blank range much less than the 7.62 by 54R, or actually much farther, reduce the ammunition weight, reduce recoil. There was a lot of great things about his concept. Very high ballistic coefficient. They ended up actually fielding his rifle in 6.5 Arasaka. He wanted to develop an entirely new cartridge. They weren't able to do it. They had 6.5 Arasakas in Russian service, had the ammunition. Let's make it in this. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that became the famous automat. Now, his concept was sound. His problem is that he was too far ahead of the time in his thinking. Mm-hmm. And with the fall of Imperial Russia and the rise of the Soviet Union, the Soviets basically, they weren't able to, at that time period, to go out and replace the 7.62 by 54R. So things continued the way they were. But he developed a lot of really interesting concepts, and one of it was for a big push for small caliber cartridges. Okay. And when the United States fielded the 5.56 in Vietnam, it immediately, was noticed by the Soviets. A lot of people just think that it was kind of the 5.45x39, which is kind of a Me Too cartridge. And I don't think that's entirely correct. The Soviets were growing dissatisfied with the 7.62x39 guns relatively quickly. Okay.
And why do you think that was?
The reason why it was because it was very difficult for them to teach young conscripts how to properly shoot it and control it on full automatic. Right. Okay. The gun rattled around a lot. And when you're talking about a kid just out of high school who's doing his compulsory service, he's only going to be in the military, for 2 years, and then he's out. There wasn't a lot of time to really bring these guys up to a real marksmanship level. Right. And so then when you handed them a gun that rattled around a lot on full automatic, their hit probability went down. So one of the things that the Russians wanted to do, and was the whole reason why the AK-74 came about, was they wanted to increase their hit probability. And originally, the Russians wanted to ditch the AKM, and they wanted to move away from the Kalashnikov platform to an entirely new design with a canceled recoil system. their goal was to dramatically improve the hit probability, and with that project, they developed what they called a low recoil impulse cartridge, which was the 545 by 39. Now, they lacked the financial resources, even at that time, okay, in the late 1960s, to transition to an entirely new gun. So they ended up basically modernizing or updating the AKM platform into what became the AK-74. Now, with the AK-74 came the 545 by 39 cartridge. In a lot of ways, I think for general infantry use that this is a much better cartridge than the 7.62 by 39. Why? Well, for a lot of reasons. One, your ammunition load is dramatically less than a 7.62 by 39. Two, your recoil impulse is dramatically less. Your hit probability is a lot higher. The cartridge tends to be quite a bit more accurate than the 7.62 by 39. It's easier to hit at distance because it has a flatter trajectory, and it also tends to penetrate, with the right loads, will penetrate modern body armor and helmets better than the 7.62 by 39.
Yeah.
So all of these things all added up to improve the lifespan of the infantrymen on the modern battlefield.
So there you go. There's a great explanation as to why they switched from the AK-47 to the AK-74. So
and I really like the 545 by 39 cartridge.
So and that's the one that's in use today. Is that correct? Or is that
incorrect? Is correct.
Okay, so they're still using that one to this day.
They are still using the 545. Now, what's interesting, though, is while I like the 545 by 39, a lot of countries didn't like it. And one of the things that had happened was in the during the Cold War period, the Soviets and the Eastern Bloc, the Warsaw Pact countries, they built a lot of rifles. And a lot of these rifles went to various hotspots around the world. A lot of rifles were basically given away as foreign aid. So there was tons and tons of 7.62 by 39 Kalashnikovs in Africa, in South America, in Asia. And a lot of these countries that had these decided that after the Soviets made the switch to 545, that they wanted to retain the 7.62 by 39. And while some of the Warsaw Pact countries made the switch to 545, it just never was a success out of Russia and some of her current satellite countries,
right,
that they had hoped for or expected. And the 7.62 by 39, remains dramatically more popular around the world than the 545. But in Russia, the 545 is still the standard.
That's the one, yeah. So why is it that when people do their comparisons to the 7.62 by 39 to the American 5.56 by 4.5, wouldn't it be more comparable to the 308 round?
To the the problem is the problem is that the United States did not learn the same lesson that the Soviets did during World War II. Okay, the Soviets came away with a whole new plan. Okay, they were going to develop, a new generation of modern small arms to go along with all their new vehicles, their new BMP armored personnel carrier, the new aircraft, okay? The United States came away with a different idea, okay? The United States came away with, we kicked everyone's butt with the M1 Garand, okay? And they felt that the caliber 30 M2 ball cartridge worked really, really well, and that the M1 Garand worked really, really well, and that maybe with a modern update to the design, that would be all they needed. Now, they did that. They developed a 7.62 by 51 NATO cartridge in the M14, and it didn't last very long in combat. in once Vietnam happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically U.S. Army ordnance tends to have a not invented here syndrome, and so they knew what was best until they didn't know what was best. So if you're going to compare the 7.62 by 39 to United States Army issue cartridge, the closest would probably be the 30 M1 carbine.
Right. But for comparison purposes, you always see it compared to the 5.56 by 4.5, which is, to me, like comparing apples and oranges when you're trying to compare the two rounds.
Sure. I mean, it's a logical comparison because they go to head to head so much.
Yeah.
Okay. I
understand why they do it.
Arch rivals.
Right. I understand why they do it because that's their battle rifle and the AR-15's our battle rifle. But as far as when they start comparing, the ballistic characteristics, of the two, it's just apples.
They don't compare.
No, they don't compare at all. So it's more. It compares more. I think the 7.62 by 39 is closer to the 300 blackout round.
Absolutely. The 300 blackout is actually a really interesting cartridge that was developed, for a specific need and purpose.
Right.
And what's neat about it is its dual nature.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, subsonic, supersonic.
Yeah.
Swap mags and go. From a supersonic standpoint, it's very similar to a 7.62 by 39. It can't quite actually meet the 7.62 by 39 as far as velocity potential due to case capacity, but it tends to have much more modern projectile designs, and when it's used for the same purpose, I think it performs, very well for what it is. The subsonic ammunition is a different story. And you got to keep in mind, the Soviets did issue subsonic 7.62 by 39 ammunition. They fielded that for a long time with their special purpose units, the Spetsnaz. So, and those two are basically, virtually identical. You're talking about a 30 caliber around 200 grains at 950 feet per second. But it's a 30 caliber bullet at 950 feet per second.
It's a big bowling ball coming at you. So we were, people are into accuracy. They're talking accuracy. The AK is not very accurate. Well, they have a platform. They developed a platform for that, for their snipers. Talk about that round and that platform.
There's three basic platforms that were, saw wide service. Of course, the Russians had their SVD, and they were a little greedy with that. They didn't hand that out quite so much to the satellite nations. And so the Romanians developed their PSL, and the Yugoslavs, they tended to march to their own beat anyways. They were also pretty damn proud of their capability of manufacturing rifles. And they developed their M76, which was actually in 8mm Mauser. But what you started talking about was the famous SVD Dragunov in 7.62 by 54R. And it's a very interesting concept because it was extraordinarily ahead of its time in the late 1950s when the project started in 1958 and when it was adopted in 1963, especially if you compare it to what the U.S. military was up to. Right.
So with that round, what's the best American round to compare that to?
Oh, the 7.62 by 54R is very similar to either the old 30-06 or the 7.62 by 51 NATO. There were a couple different military loads. In the old days, they had a heavy ball load for use in Maxim machine guns for long-range indirect fire. The most common load today is their 148 grain FMJ, launched about 2,830 feet per second. It is inherently accurate I've talked to this, and this is actually interesting because I've talked to engineers at Celler and Balat, at Lapua, couple other places in Eastern Europe. And what was interesting was, in Russia especially, what was interesting is they all felt that the 7.62 by 54R case was inherently well designed as far as accuracy goes, and that even though the military weapons weren't necessarily particularly accurate, it could be built into a very accurate match rifle. And the Soviets actually won the Olympics with a gun designed by Dragunov. So as far as machine gun use, sniper rifle use, it's at its best inside 800 meters. Past 800 meters, you start to get quite a bit of wind deflection in there. You start to get quite a bit of drop. It can definitely reach farther than that, but as far as first round hits, it's at its best inside 800 meters. It is a very traditional round as far as bullet weight and performance. What's unique about it, though, is that it was developed in 1891. Okay, so you've got that big rim that's sitting there, and it's a dinosaur. This is a 19th century rimmed cartridge that remains in frontline service around the world today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting here and I'm listening to Dave talk, and I've probably told Dave this a million times. I remember watching him on television. I
suck on TV.
I read everything that he publishes, and I find his articles on websites like ar15.com and stuff like that. So sitting here, having him have this discussion with us, I'm extremely entertained, and
you're a fanboy.
Honored, honored to be here and be able to participate in this. And so I'm just taking in all of the information because, just like with a lot of our listeners, I'm learning quite a bit through this conversation.
That's what you got. I mean, that's what you have to do. I mean, the point is that if you're open-minded, you can learn something from just about anyone, and that's why I like hanging out with you guys. Me and Marty had a blast in Eastern Europe, and I always enjoy being around Shwell, and we're talking about cool guy stuff. Commie ammo, commie cartridges. Okay, if we're going to jump on the SVD, just for one more second, okay?
Do it.
Let me point out the fact that what's interesting about this was this was the first, ground up sniper rifle. Okay, and by that I mean typically before, sniper rifles had been infantry rifles that someone threw a scope on, okay? Mm-hmm. And maybe they were hand-selected for accuracy during their initial test, okay? The SVD was a completely different animal. This was a rifle that was built from the ground up specifically for shooting people at long range, okay? And it was built totally based upon all the lessons learned during World War II. Okay? And you have to remember, the Soviets were the absolute dominant force when it came to sniping in World War II. There was no one else that even came close to their capabilities, the amount of sniper rifles that they fielded, the amount of equipment that they developed. And if you read German after action reports during World War II, they were always this huge threat. Now, they took all this information back after the war, and they sat down and they didn't just develop a rifle, though. They developed a rifle, they developed an optic, and they developed a cartridge, okay? So the rifle was this really, really sexy-looking semi-automatic rifle. It looked like it's a very futuristic look even today. Thumb hole stock, and the rifle was designed by a guy who had designed a rifle that won the Olympics. Okay, and that's a really funny story in itself that I'll have to tell at some point. Sometime.
I think you should tell that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll do it real quick. Okay.
Okay. You can't just leave us hanging on that, so you got to tell it.
Okay. Well. the Russians hadn't actually competed at the Olympics in a long time. Okay, so in 1912 they showed up at to the Olympic Games in London, but they were 2 weeks late because the games were already over because they were on a different calendar. Okay, now think about that. So the Russians show up, woo, we're here for the Olympic. Yeah, that's like you're a little late. And
Yeah,
we're on the
over.
wrong calendar. Okay, then World War I happened, right? And then the revolution happened. And then they became commies. So they weren't invited. They didn't attend. They had a lot of other things going on, that like purges and stuff. Then World War II happened. And the first games that were held after World War II, they were invited to, but they didn't go to because they had a lot of things going on in their own country, and they weren't really ready. But they decided that they were going to go to the next Olympics, and they really wanted to make a point, okay, because they were commies, right? And so they decided that when they went to the shooting competitions, they were going to kick some butt. And so they went on they basically put it out that they wanted anyone that was available, that was capable of doing it, to submit Olympic grade competition rifles for possible use. And Evgeny Dragunov did that. His design was chosen, and it went with a very young unknown Soviet competitor to the Olympics. And he shot against literally the best in the world. No one knew who this young kid was. And it came down that the person that they expected to win the Olympics was standing there side by side with this young unknown Soviet kid. They're tied. They're going shot for shot. The time is running out. This crowd like swells up behind him. They're all watching him. And just before the time runs out, this young Soviet kid, watching the wind, squeezes a trigger, sends a round off, and he wins the game. And suddenly he became a force in international competition. And it was the Soviets doing so well at international competition, which actually led to the formation of the AMU, the Army Marksmanship Unit. And they were specifically tasked with, beating the Soviets. But the point is that the guy that invented that rifle that young Soviet competitor used was Dragunov. And Dragunov wasn't known in the Soviet Union as a guy that designed military weapons. He was known as a guy that built these really kick-butt accurate competition rifles, and he loved competing. Dragunov was a shooter, okay? He was the type of guy that you would have loved to have a conversation with. He went, he competed, he shot, he'd sit there and he'd BS with guys on the line and shooting, and he was just a really fun, nice guy. And so he was asked to be one of the people that designed a sniper rifle for the Soviet Army. Mm-hmm. A number of different designers were tasked with that, including Kalashnikov, and his SVD-63 was the eventual winner. Now, with that rifle, though, was this hugely advanced optic, okay? Because you got to stop and think, this is 1963. In 1963, the Russian SVD PS-01 optic, it had a telemetric rangefinder, it had mil marks on it, it had a BDC, it had illumination, and it had the ability to detect active IR. Okay.
Wow,
so
this was in 63.
This is in 63. Okay.
That seems very advanced, yeah.
Oh, it was extremely advanced, especially when you consider what, the United States Army was using. Okay. The United States Army wasn't using anything because they'd shut down all their sniper schools and stuff. Snipers were unimportant. Okay. And that was something that the Americans traditionally did. So they had World War II leftovers. Or in the case of Vietnam, they had to press in some competition rifles from out of Hawaii. But and then in addition to that very advanced scope for its time, they also knew that in order to get the most out of the rifle, you needed good ammunition, right? So rather than having the rifle depend on standard ball, which it could shoot, they developed a specialized sniper load for it called the 7N1. And this was basically a military match style load, except for with a twist. And the twist was they designed the projectile with the early yaw cycle so that it would increase the terminal performance on target. So the ammunition was held to a higher standard. It had special projectiles in it. The powder charge was carefully regulated, and it all led to a more consistent, more accurate load that was specifically designed to be teamed with the SVD. And so that was their complex there, along with special training and extra equipment and such.
Gotcha.
So that's my story on the 54R sniper load.
That was a good one. I like that. I like the Olympic story. So that's the Dragunov, the 7.62 by 5.4. That's their precision sniping round and platform.
General purpose machine gun round.
And general purpose machine gun round is the 7.62 by 5.4. And what's the machine gun again that they're?
PKM. RPK was their squad automatic weapon in 7.62 by 39, and then as RPK 74 and 5.45.
Gotcha. We didn't talk magazines yet. How important are the magazines to our ballistic discussion? Do you think it ties in any? Do we need to talk about magazines, or is it relevant at all, do you think?
Not to ballistics, but the magazine is critically important to any auto-loading firearm. Okay, there were a lot of guns that were cursed with bad magazines, like the French show during World War One. Wasn't a great gun to begin with, but I tell you what, the magazine design really didn't help it out any. The
French should stick to pastries, okay?
Yeah. A great magazine is, just going to enhance the reliability of any firearm. Yeah. And the Russians tend to build very, very robust magazines. And can you guess why they do that?
Because they want to be the best?
Because they had a lot of guns with crappy magazines before.
Before? They were sick of crappy magazines?
Yeah. Like an SVT-40.
Well, that's one of the distinctive characteristics of the AK-47 is that, that curved magazine. And you don't really see that on any other rifle platform other than the AK-47.
You're talking as far as the shape of it, which is dictated by the taper of the cartridge?
Right.
Well, the other one that's commonly known that is even more tapered would be the show an 8mm Lebel, and that was actually a half moon, and that was 20 rounds instead of 30 rounds. But I think I was at a military trade show in Abu Dhabi a number of years ago, and by the Remington booth, and there were some Russian engineers there. And they were trying to be polite and talk to the Americans and be friendly and stuff. And they were interested in the ACR. And the ACR that was on display had a PMag in it. And so they were looking at the PMag, and they were jibber-jabbering back and forth among themselves. And then they were trying to ask questions to the Remington rep. And they didn't really get anywhere, and he was kind of being, a little bit short with them. And I basically I explained it to him, and I said, look, they're asking you that if this is the actual combat magazine or if this is just a display magazine. And he was like, well, why would they ask that? I was like, well, because they can't actually believe that you would field a magazine in combat like this. Because compared to what they're used to, the AK-74, this looks really flimsy and breakage prone. And they're used to having, metal liners in the feed lips and metal reinforcements where the magazine locks into the interface of the firearm.
Yeah.
Really overkill. And it was just kind of funny, that they thought that, this was just some cheap display magazine.
Yeah. So back to the AK-47 magazine. Why does it have that curve to it? Is there a
absolutely
philosophy use for that?
No, it's simply magazine profile is not dictated by what's going to look sexy or something like that. It's dictated by the taper of the cartridge and how the cartridges stack. Now, one of the features of the 7.62x39 is that it's a rimless tapered cartridge, and that taper tends to aid feeding and extraction. But that's when you take a bunch of these and you double stack them side by side, and then you stack them on top of each other. In order to get them to feed properly, it requires a curvature to the magazine. And that's actually one of the reasons why 7.62x39 AR-15s have problems with feeding.
Okay.
Because
interesting.
What happens is that the AK doesn't really have a magazine well like the M4 AR-15 series, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that long magazine well dictates how far down the magazine has to be straight before it curves. Mm-hmm. Okay. And when you switch it from a 5.56 to a 7.62x39, and you have to have a straight section before it curves, it's not ideal for the cartridge, and it tends to lead to problems, as well as a lot of the magazines were shoddily made for the commercial market. But
gotcha.
But that's why the taper's there.
That's why you got
and
the
that's
taper.
That's why the 5.45 magazines don't have the same shape, because the shape of the cartridge is a little bit different.
Okay, well, that's interesting.
Great magazines too.
What is your when you hear people talking about AKs, David? What's your biggest pet peeve? What is a myth that you hear out there constantly that people are repeating and believe that you'd like to debunk?
Oh, geez. In my lifetime, because I'm old, okay, the AK went from being held in incredibly high regard as the absolute epitome of reliability, that the troops that faced it in Vietnam held it in extremely high esteem. And in the gun press during the war and after the war, you always heard about how reliable the Kalashnikov was. And then it kind of went the other way with the veterans of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, where suddenly the AK fell from grace, and it was considered fairly unreliable and vastly inferior to the M4 carbine. Mm-hmm. A lot of the guns encountered in the Middle East were just beat to snot, poorly maintained. The other thing was a lot of the ammunition encountered in Iraq was fairly poor quality. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think a properly well-built Kalashnikov can be very reliable, and even in 7.62x39, can shoot fairly well with an optic on it, or if you're younger than I am and you still got your eyesight. So I would say my pet peeve when it comes to the AK would simply be uneducated people talking about that which they do not know.
And we're correcting that by offering the Talking Lead AK Korner presented by Pioneer Arms Corp and having on intelligent, smart people like yourself to educate those that don't know, so they won't be ignorant anymore. They won't be AK ignorant. So I've learned a lot today. I know you've put out a lot of information, and I know that our lead heads are going to have to probably rewind this and play it back a couple of times to get all that information that you've given out. Is there anything that you think that is pertinent to our ballistics discussion that we've not gone over yet?
Yeah, actually, if you don't mind spending another minute, I'd like to touch on I'd like to touch on a couple cartridges that were begot by the 7.62 by 39.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's interesting to note that the 7.62 by 39 kind of led to two other popular cartridges. One is the 6.5 Grendel. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Very popular around. Yeah.
The 6.5 Grendel, the development process started in 2003 on this by Bill Alexander. Originally, him and another gentleman who was a competitive shooter named Arnie Brennan, they played with a 6.5 PPC-based cartridge. Later on, Bill Alexander worked with Lapua and a Finnish engineer named Jani Poisespa. And Jani decided that seeing as Lapua already had the capability to build 220 Russian cases, that they would base it on that. And this was a cartridge that had been developed directly from the 7.62 by 39. So the 6.5 Grendel, in a roundabout way, is a direct relative of the 7.62 by 39. And it's also interesting to note that the Russians played around a lot with that basic cartridge. They developed a lot of cartridges that were never adopted, that never saw the light of day, and that probably a lot of people don't know about. And it's my understanding that they did play with 6 and 6 millimeter, 6.5 millimeter variants of the cartridge case. But what's interesting is that the 6.5 millimeter Grendel was designed by a Brit and a Finn for the U.S. commercial market, and then it ended up being adopted by the Serbian army in a Kalashnikov as a designated marksman rifle, and then being built in Russia in hunting rifles.
Really?
So
that is interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, and actually, I think if you're going to update the 7.62 by 39, the 6.5 Grendel would be a great cartridge to use. It's got the same case head, so you've got the same bolt. You don't have to change the bolt. The only thing you'd have to change is the barrel, the magazine. The exterior ballistics of the 6.5 Grendel just totally blow the 7.62 by 39 away due to through the use of very aerodynamic projectiles with high ballistic coefficients. It just it works well up close. It works well at surprisingly long ranges. Another cartridge is the 9 by 39. And there's actually a Kalashnikov that's chambered for this, the AK-9.
Talk about that 9 by 39, yeah.
This is the exact opposite of the 6.5 Grendel. This was actually a Russian military project. As I had mentioned previously, the Russians had fielded subsonic 7.62 by 39 ammunition for use with suppressed AKMs, and the Spetsnaz fielded those in Afghanistan, and they were used in different hotspots around the world. But there were some drawbacks to that entire platform, the complex, the rifle, the suppressor, and the cartridge, the subsonic cartridge. And after action reports basically were that the end users were dissatisfied with the accuracy of the system, of the combination, as well as the terminal performance and penetration. So the Soviets set out on began working on developing a suppressed sniper system in a new subsonic cartridge. And they played around with the 7.62 by 39. It didn't meet their needs. They actually tried a 7.62 by 25 Tokarev cartridge loaded with the 152 grain projectile from the 7.62 by 54R sniper load that we talked about. But it didn't meet all their requirements. They tried a 545 cartridge as a base, necking it up, and they eventually settled on taking the 7.62 by 39, necking it up to take a 364 diameter projectile, developed a 250 grain projectile, and launched it at subsonic velocities. And it worked very well when it was first introduced into combat by Spetsnaz in Chechnya. It was very quiet. It was sufficiently accurate. They felt that it was very useful out to 300 meters with a bullet drop compensating optic that they had on it. And they said that there were multiple occasions when Chechnyans didn't realize that they were being engaged, and they would have half a squad eliminated before they even realized they were being shot at. And the cartridge has continued in Russian service. It expanded out and branched out from just sniper weapons into PDWs because it works extremely well from short barrels. Mm-hmm. And most recently, it finally come to the U.S. I always wanted to see 9x39 in the U.S. just because I think it's a neat cartridge, and it's like anything else that you can't have, you want it, and so it's finally showed up, and now
so who's developing? Who's got the rifle for that?
Well, that's what we're all waiting for. Is
right.
The ammunition's here. It's for sale. You can go to ammunitionstore.com and buy the ammo, but we're all waiting on guns. I've had the chance to shoot some prototypes. Mm-hmm. Krebs Custom is coming out with both an AK and an AR in 9x39.
Interesting. Okay.
Wolf is working on an AR upper 9x39. There's also a couple other companies that are working on 9x39 guns. It is a boatload of fun out of a 10.5-inch AR. I was using a Silent Chico Osprey 45 suppressor I borrowed off one of my friends while we were shooting together, and it is shockingly quiet. The impact of a 278 grain 36 caliber FMJ on steel,
wow,
is impressive. And we actually shot it out to 400 yards on steel. And I think that once the guns are out, I think the main drawback is that someone is going to have to pony up the dough and make a dedicated magazine just for 9x39.
Yeah.
I was using 7.62x39 mags, but I think that is a real interesting cartridge that is based off the famous 7.62x39.
Very cool. Interesting points there. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's probably ballistic overload at this point. So unless you got anything else to add, Shwell?
No, sir. I was just thinking, let's make sure we bring up the book of the AK one more time, at least. And
yeah, definitely we're going to do that. So, David, thank you so much for that wealth of information there on ballistics. If you guys have questions as you're listening to this, something pops into your mind, shoot me an email, talkinglead@gmail.com, and I'll make sure that we get that to David and see if he can't field that question for you. But like Shwell said, their annual is out, the Book of the AK. You can pretty much get that on any magazine stand. Anywhere where you buy your firearms magazines, it's going to be there. David writes, again, he writes for the Firearms News. They have a number of different publications, David. Name all those publications that you guys have.
Well, I can't name them all because we're the largest publisher of gun magazines in the country.
Right.
But I edit two titles, Book of the AK-47 and Be Ready Magazine. I'm the senior field editor for Firearms News Magazine. I'm a field editor for Rifle Shooter Magazine, and I write for some of our other annuals. I'm one of the hosts on Guns and Ammo TV, and you can see some of my stuff on some of our websites as well. And it was just great being here with you, Marty, and hopefully I wasn't too boring. I tend to ramble and go down different rabbit trails.
You are the perfect guest because we throw you the ball and you run with it, and that and we just try to catch you the whole time. So that was awesome. Again, thank you so much for that information, and we're going to have David back on again. Like I said, we're going to get him on our regular show, Talking Lead podcast. We're going to find out more details about David. We're going to get a little history. We'll hit him with the new guy questions, and we'll find out more about their publications. And he's a wealth of knowledge for just pretty much anything firearms related. So,
and one of the things that I'd like to say is
yes.
that One of the things that I really like about Marty is how much of a staunch Second Amendment supporter he is. And we had some great conversations while we were in Poland. It was really, really good hearing him espouse his views and just how much of a supporter he is of our God-given rights. And that is, one thing that really stood out to me. I mean, we had a lot of fun. We had some great times, but, just his core beliefs really impressed me. And that's one of the reasons why I just was glad to be here.
Well, thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. We're going to get, like I said, we're going to get you on again. We're going to get the lead heads more familiar with you in some upcoming episodes. I wonder if you would do me a favor. We've got one more lead head here that's got some questions. Yep. And I think we've answered some of these, but I want to go through these real quick. John B., some people like their last names said, some of them don't. So it says, hey, man, got some AK questions. Is the AK modular like the AR-15? Are parts easily interchangeable between AKs? I think we answered that in the last episode with Vince. They're really not as interchangeable as the AR-15, not by a long shot. What differentiates the AK-74 from the AK-47 and the AKM? I think David answered that pretty well today with the ballistics. It's different. It's a different caliber.
Well, and you have different receiver too. The traditional, well-known AK-47 is a milled receiver. So there are a number of differences. Yeah. Besides the caliber.
Mainly, it's the caliber. What is the purpose on the lever over the gas tube on some AKs?
I believe. Well, he can only be talking about two things. One would be the lever to remove the gas tube, your routine maintenance. Yeah. Now, but he could be talking, what I think he's actually talking about is the gas shutoff valve that is on some guns, like some of the Yugoslav guns, for grenade launching. And that is usually incorporated into a folding sight for launching the grenade. And when you unfold the sight to be able to use it, it automatically shuts the gas off to the rifle, and a blank cartridge is inserted, and the grenade is launched.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what he's talking about because he says some AK. So, yeah, that's the one he's talking about. Why do some AKs have 2 slots in their handguards and some have 3?
Manufacturer.
Just more vents?
Just how they made them.
Yeah, okay. So no real benefit 2 versus 3.
I do not think so, but it is actually funny because the Soviets did do extensive studies on the airflow through the handguards. Mm-hmm. And from what I was told, by a Russian engineer, if the vents are too large, the airflow is actually reduced. It would be opposite of what you think it would be. So they were designed for a specific reason, according to what I was told.
Sure. And his last one is, AKs are ultra reliable even when not cleaned. How long can I go without cleaning an AK? So basically, how long can you go without cleaning his AK and expect it to work? I don't think that's been determined yet, has it?
87. There is no answer to that. One, you should always maintain your firearms. You should clean them. You should properly lube them. There's a current fetish out there now not to clean your firearms, and I'll admit, there are times that I'm guilty of that as well. But why not clean it and maintain it? You paid for the damn thing. Why not take care of it? It's like, do you change the oil in your car?
Yeah.
A properly built AK with good ammunition should be able to run reliably, without any problem through thousands of rounds. I put 5,000 rounds through one without cleaning it, and there were no issues.
Yeah, but you eventually cleaned it, right?
Afterwards, yeah. After the test.
Yeah, but you were doing a test. So I don't think he's going to be just shooting 5,000
I was doing a test.
So just clean it like you would your normal firearms, especially if you're going to shoot this corrosive ammo through your AK. You want to clean it
If you're going to shoot corrosive, you
Yeah.
don't have any choice. You've got to clean it.
Yeah, you got to clean that as soon as you're done. But yeah, go to Modern Spartan Systems. They've got a great line of cleaning products there, and that'll keep your AK running even better. So, all right, that does it for our section on ballistics. Again, David, thank you. We're getting ready to do our giveaways now. So, Shwell.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. We're going to reach into you want to go to Instagram, Facebook? Where do you want to go to pick our first winner? And what are we going to give first? Are we going to give the kit away, or are we going to give away the rifle?
I say we go kit first, then we go Hell Pup.
Okay, so we're going to be giving away an AK parts kit here, and what all does that include, or what does it not include? Probably be easier.
Yeah, what it's missing, what you'll have to add to this kit to complete your rifle would be a barrel and a receiver.
There you go. So for you hands-on lead heads that are out there, this is going to be for you. So let's go to, I think we should go to Instagram for this.
Do it.
And as we were scanning through and just kind of looking at who comments and who likes and who's following us, who's following Pioneer Arms, Navy Vet Patriot has popped up a lot. Now there's a lot of you guys out there that have been doing the Instagram and the Facebook, but Navy Vet Patriot just kind of stood out to both Shwell and I. So the kit is going to you, and that's
Woo!
Roger B. You know who you are, Roger B. Navy Vet _Patriot. Congratulations, you win the AK kit from Pioneer Arms.
Congrats to you.
Awesome.
Send me email talkinglead@gmail.com with your contact info. Make sure the kit, though, they don't have to be any certain. It's not going FFL or anything. We can ship it directly to them, right?
Correct. I can just put a label on the box and ship it out.
There you go.
Shazam.
Shazam!
It'll be Christmas.
So we want to see that finished product, and if you need help, tips and tricks on getting those parts or getting it together, get in touch with us, and we'll hook you up with some qualified people. Of course, Vince can do that as well from last episode.
Yes, sir. Take one of those classes with him and Larry.
That'd be awesome,
That would be awesome.
right?
That would be pretty kick butt.
So they're all full this year, so you're gonna have to wait till next year until they offer it next year. All right, so let's give a Hell Pup away, David.
Woo!
We're gonna give a Hell Pup away, baby.
For those of you that don't know, the Hell Pup is the 7.62x39 pistol AK by Pioneer Arms Corp.
There you go. And we gave 2 away last episode. We gave away to, who were the lucky winners last week, Swell?
Josh and was it Troy?
Josh and Troy. That's right. Josh, which is Squash EDC, and Troy S. Were the lucky recipients. And they sent us pictures. They posted them on our social media. Haven't really seen any action shots from those guys yet. So send us some shots at the range, guys, with your AKs.
Yeah, they're definitely not designed to be safe queens, guys.
No. Put them out there. Get some use out of them. And I kind of noticed, Troy and Josh slacked off a little bit on their engaging with us on social media and email sending in. Just because you win, man, don't slack. Keep those questions coming. Keep the comments. Keep liking our post, sharing our post.
You know what? I think that they were just getting acquainted with those new guns.
I think it's probably what it is.
Loading magazines, emptying them, reloading them, and emptying them, and racking,
stripping them,
the charging
taking
handle.
them apart, putting them back together. Yeah,
I understand,
busy.
guys. I'm a gun nut too, guys. I understand.
Yeah, so pick up because we will come and we'll confiscate those. So keep up the following, the likes, the sharing. We appreciate that. So now, next one, we're going to go, where we're going? Facebook for the Hell Pup?
Go for it.
Okay. So, again, I mean, you guys are doing great on Instagram. You're doing great on Facebook. sending us questions and comments and just everything. It's great. It's been overwhelming. But this week, our standout lead head that's going to be taking home the Pioneer Arms Help Up is Ashley and Alex Kellum. So
Cool.
I'm pretty sure it's Alex that's been doing everything.
Congratulations.
So Alex Kellum, congratulations. Again, you have to meet all the federal, local, state laws before you can have this. So if for some reason you're not able to take this rifle, let us know as soon as possible, and we'll have to give it to another lead head. But send us email, talkinglead@gmail.com. We need his FFL info. Is that what it is?
Yes, sir. We'll need some of their personal information as well as the FFL information, and we'll get in contact with the FFL and do what we have to do on our end.
There you go. So just shoot me the email. I'll forward it to Shwell, and he'll get in touch with you on all the particulars there that you need. So very good, guys. There you go. We're killing it on the AK Korner. That's That's four rifles that we're giving away so far. Serious?
If you get a help out, everybody gets a help out.
Everybody gets a help up. So there you go, guys. There's 4 of our giveaways of our 12-part series. So we've got, what's 12 minus 4?
8, sir.
So
8.
we got 8 more to go, right?
And
8
CJ
more.
was supposed to be here tonight.
Right.
Except
Yeah,
he's in North Carolina helping out with the hurricane.
Yeah, Hurricane Florence, as you guys know, and we got a lot of listeners that are out there too. So we are thinking about you guys. Let us know that you're okay out there. And if you're not, if you need help, you need assistance, get in touch with me. Our buddies from Sheepdog Impact Assistance are going to be out there in full force. So if we can get them over to help you guys if you're in need, shoot me an email. You guys shoot me a personal message on Facebook or Instagram, and I'll make sure that we get some sort of assistance over to you. But yeah, thanks to CJ for going out there. He's boots on the ground right now as we speak.
On a chair, maybe.
Well, I was trying to make him sound useful.
He was supposed to be here tonight to make a special announcement about next month's giveaway.
Yeah, so we're gonna let Shwell do that. Hopefully he's accurate. So next month we're giving away another AK, but there's a little specialty to this one, right?
Yes, sir. This AK is going to come Cerakoted by Blackout Custom Cerakote. They're a local company here in Central Florida that handles a lot of Cerakote stuff for us. Quality stuff. CJ got with them and they came up with the design. I don't even know what the design looks like, so it's going to be a surprise for me.
It's going to be surprising
as well
to
as
all
you.
of us. Yeah.
It's going to be cool.
Oh, absolutely. The Tucker and the team over at Blackout Custom Cerakote, they're very creative when it comes to this stuff. So
and
I think it's going to be...
We've had the Mother Trucker Tucker on the show before. I think he's been on a couple of times, actually. So our lead heads are familiar with Blackout Cerakote Custom. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. I don't know what it's going to look like. So one of you lead heads, one of you AK lead heads is going to win that next month. So make sure you are engaging with us on social media. You're following us, Talking Lead, Pioneer Arms, Firearms News, Vince Buckles over at Mesa Kinetic Research. We're going to be checking into that. Make sure that you are supporting the people that come on our show as well. That's going to play into it just as much as your participation. And send us your questions. If you've got questions from any of our episodes or episodes for future that you think we should talk about, send those in, talkinglead@gmail.com. And make sure you put in the subject AK Korner. And if you got jackwagon nominations or stuff for our normal show, send that in a separate email, please. It's going to help me out a lot. And don't send me your suggestions on Facebook or Instagram. It's just too hard for me to track down, guys. But I do my best. I try. So thank you to all the lead heads out there for your participation and your support and making the AK Korner such a success. Thank you to David Fortier. David, awesome show. I know the lead heads are going to love this, and looking forward to having you back on, buddy.
Sounds great. Hopefully I don't ramble too much.
No.
You're still one of my favorite people in the industry. It's always an honor to be around you and to have these discussions with you.
Well, I feel the same way about you, Shwell, and it's just I'm glad to be here. It's a lot of fun.
And David, your rambling is more intelligent than most people's lectures. So that's a compliment, by the way. All right, guys. Until next month, we are out of here.